welcome to People in Power. I'm Barbara Serra. On today's program, return to Rwanda. In April 1994, the world watched in horror as the tiny Central African state of Rwanda tore itself apart. Long-standing tensions between Hutus and Tutsis, the two main ethnic groups, exploded when the plane of the Hutu president, Juvenal Habyarimana, was shot down. Exactly who killed the president has never been established, but the effect was instantaneous. An unofficial Hutu militia called the Interahamwe went on a genocidal rampage, as did thousands of ordinary Hutus in a spasm of ethnic hatred brought to a fever pitch by years of anti-Tutsi propaganda. The resulting bloodbath saw more than 800,000 Tutsis massacred and sparked the return of the exiled Rwandan Patriotic Front, which then captured the capital, Kigali. Fearing reprisals, as many as 2 million Hutus then fled across the border to what is now the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Well, now, 16 years on, many of those same Hutus want to go back home as part of a reconciliation and repatriation program sponsored by the UN and the Rwandan government. But what sort of welcome awaits them? Sorious Samura has been to find out.
What is it like to be branded as killers? These people know. We're in a United Nations refugee transit camp in Goma, in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. They are all Rwandan Hutus who fled in 1994 following the victory of the invading Tutsi-led rebel force, the RPF. They were joined by the Hutu power extremists who were responsible for the Rwandan genocide earlier that year, in which an estimated 800,000 people, mostly Tutsis, were killed. Tomorrow, after more than 15 years, these people are going home. And I'm here to join one of them and experience with them the journey they are about to make, to understand what it's like for these people to return to Rwanda after those fateful few months of 1994.
These people have been living in exile side by side with the very people who are responsible for the genocide, the Interahamwe, who are still out there fighting and are still a threat to the Rwandan government. For 15 years, many of these people have been living in terrible conditions in the forest of the Congo, constantly moving. So why now, after all these years, are they deciding to go, to return to Rwanda?
Twumvaga inkuru bavuga ko mu Rwanda utahutse bamwica. Ubwo none tukaba twatohoje batubwira ko mu Rwanda rutari kwica ko ruri kwakira uwo ari we wese, tukaba twahisemo kugira ute gutaha.
Twari twagiye mu mashamba tuba mu giturage, twaje gutaha abasirikari ba FDLR bakanga ngo babavanye mu gutaha.
Many of the people in the camp seemed frightened and suspicious. I was getting concerned that no one would want to share their journey with us. Then we met Vestine. She was 16 when she fled with her family over 15 years ago. Many, including her father, died in the ordeal, and she hasn't seen any of them since the summer of 1997.
Abakongomani baramfata barangundira ngumamo umuhungu w'umusore maze kumfata ngumamo.
Vestine went on to become the man's wife, but after all of her 5 children were born by cesarean section, her husband asked her to leave.
Aho yagize amafaranga akagenda kubera icyuma, zaravuga ngo ha naho nabishobora. Abandi bagore batwara amada bakabyara neza, none wowe byarira ku cyuma. Iwanyu niba utagiyeyo umvire ku parisere, niho abandi bagore bazabyara neza. Mungu kanisaidia, ndafika kwetu. Kama Mungu anapenda ndafika kwetu. Ndafika kwetu tu basi. Nisijue vya vita mbatanaambia mbo niliuaga wala si niliibaga. Abakiri mu bya kwetu. Na watoto. Nafarijika kama ninafika kwetu.
After telling us her moving story, Vestina's agreed that we can accompany her. For me, it's tough because most of the refugees I've seen here today or this evening are really, really young. And most of them, some of them have told me that they were about 8, 10, 12, 14 when the genocide happened. Of course, it's possible that some of their parents, loved ones, family members, or family friends may have been involved in the genocide. But, you know, for some of them, they knew nothing. They were only children. The arrival of around 2 million Rwandan refugees into the Congo in 1994, here on the shores of Lake Kivu, together with the Hutu militia, now known as the FDLR, has led to a bitter period of conflict in which an estimated 5.4 million people, mostly civilians, have lost their lives.
Vita inaanza ku Congo na depuis 94 sasa walifika huko njoo ima village yetu mapori na kwa insecurity watu waikale bien
kiisha kuongea sasa njoo sasa hapo ba refugee ba Hutu na batoto bote bafanya nini baanza kutoka leo hapa kisha kufika kule bote biko ba genocidaire est-ce que batarudia?
Back at the transit camp, the refugees were getting ready for the journey ahead. There are estimated to be around 35,000 Rwandan refugees that remain in the Democratic Republic of Congo, along with around 5,000 armed combatants of the FDLR. Last year, a new alliance formed between the Congolese and Rwandan governments, along with the United Nations, has resulted in 2 major military operations against the Hutu rebels. Although they haven't been entirely successful, it has resulted in an influx of refugees asking the United Nations Refugee Agency to help them go home. Then in November last year, 2 of the FDLR High Command were arrested in Germany, bringing new hope that the militia may finally be coming to its end. It was interesting to see how happy and excited people seemed. I expected there to be more fear about what awaited them back home, but clearly they were just happy to be leaving behind such a difficult time in their lives. About 20 kilometers across the border, we arrived in another transit camp run jointly by the UN and Rwanda's own National Commission for Refugees. Although it wasn't yet home, this was still the first time these people had set foot on Rwandan soil in over 15 years.
Numvisha umutima wanjye unezerewe kuko ngeze iwacu nkamvuye ahantu ho mu kigunda natunguwe no kwihishahisha mu kigunda nkaba ngeze iwacu ubu numvishe binejeje cyane
kumva nezewe burasimburuka kujya nabaga hari igoma pe nabaga mu kigo ahubwo ndavuze ngo ariko ngeze ahantu heza ho ndikumva ndi kwisohoka ndi kugenda.
We were told Vestine would have to wait 4 days before the transport left for her region. The day before her departure, we returned to the camp to see how she was getting on. I found her sitting with the few that remained and had a chance to talk to one of them about their experiences in the Congo.
Tuba mu ishyamba ubutarya umunyu kajya turajya n'ibinyamushongo bikururuka ubwo abagabo bacu bakajya guhaha bakasiga mu mashyamba bakajya kuduhahira iyo bajya guhahira bararagayo ubwo bagenda ni nka 50 akagaruka nka 25 abandi bapfuye niho nabashe mba mu giturage aho bitaga Kanyenzuki bakatwambura utwenda ibyungu bakajyana ibintu bikoresho byose byo mu nzu abagore bakabafata bakabaraza abagabo bakabakubita bakabaho uwo bishe n'uwo batishe.
The more I heard about the horrific conditions these people had been living in, the more I understood why they were so happy to be back. But Vestine seemed quiet, and I thought she might be anxious about the trip tomorrow.
Nikapata fasi kwenye ndalala. Ninafika saa vile siku ya pili au siku ya tatu. Acha nikafika hapo kwa mwenyewe. Ndakutana iko mvya kwetu. Akanipochea, nimesema kama ndafurahi akanionyesha kwetu basi ndafurahi.
I couldn't help but feel anxious for Vestine. She doesn't know the whereabouts of any of her family, and she's going back alone with her children after more than 15 years, hoping to reclaim her father's land. Rwanda is the most densely populated country in Africa, with over 10 million people living in one of the continent's smallest countries. The competition for land was an important factor in fueling the conflict that led to the genocide. And with thousands of refugees still returning every year, it continues to be a problematic and potentially explosive issue. Vestine might find herself in conflict with people who may now be on her family's property. We were just approaching the village when Vestine asked us to stop the car. It seemed that she had already recognized someone.
Makuru.
The woman was Vestine's cousin.
Oh, ngabagahe. Ndiko. Myaka ingana itya? Nagasani. Benabana bawe. Nuntasigaye.
It was a relief to see that Vestine still had family here. We heard that her stepbrother was here too, but we hadn't yet heard anything about her father's land. The lady was an old neighbor, and it was good to see Vestine getting such a warm welcome. Despite her long absence, she seemed to know where she was going.
So, Vestine, how would you have carried this with all the children?
Ningevibeba kumgongo. Na wote wanajitembeza.
Really?
Yeah, and the children could walk.
Shamba zetu hizi.
She told us this was all her father's land, and we were obviously getting near the house.
Adi.
Oh, and some horse.
It was clear that someone was living in the house, and Vestine seemed to realize that it wasn't her family.
Vestine, you okay?
Hakuna cha kufanya. Akapenda ndatoka akapenda nabakia tu ndani tunabakia pamoja. Ni nyumba kabambi.
We'd clearly generated a lot of interest in the village, but we hadn't seen any more of Vestine's family members. Then as we were waiting, the woman who was living in the house turned up.
So that's the... Do you know her? Vestine? Do you want to talk to her?
back in her old house seemed to bring back a lot of memories for Vestine. I asked the village chief to explain what was happening to the lady of the house, then thought it would be best to give them all some space. We will come and see you tomorrow, okay? Good luck. Good luck, Mama. So, Chief, now that Vestine has returned, how do you think the village is going to receive her? What are you going to do to help her to settle down?
Kandi bariya mubona hariya barimo imiryango ye nuko mukiri hano baramushaka cyane baramukumbuye muri makeya barahita rero bamusura barebe icyo akennye barakimufasha nabo bunganira ku byo mwamuhaye nyuma kandi natwe nk'ubuyobozi tugomba kumuba hafi kugira ngo ashobore kumenyera.
Land is a serious issue in Africa. I mean, she's back. It looks like someone is using the land that she was hoping to come and use. What's going to happen?
Imiryango yari yabukodesheje kuko ba nyirabwo nta bari bahari. Vuga ngo twe nk'ubuyobozi icyo twashobora kunganira ni ukorohereza Vestine kubona ubutaka bwe mu buryo bunyuze mu bwumvikana ariko kubera ko bufite yari yarabukodesheje.
It's hard to imagine that the last time Vestine was here, up to 1 million people were lying dead all over this country. Most of them murdered by their very own neighbors. I wanted to understand what actually happened here in this village, all those years ago when Vestine and her family first decided to flee.
Chief, how are you doing, sir? Chief, can you tell me what happened in this village during the genocide of 1994?
Aho abantu bafashe imipanga amaheri mbese intwaro za gihanga bica bagenzi babo ubwoko bw'abatutsi babaziza ubwoko.
In a village of 2,000 people, the chief told us that 205 Tutsis were killed, leaving 45 survivors who continue to live here with their children. As for the killers, the majority of them continue to live here too, as part of the same community.
Abandi barangije natije kugeza ubu bari mu ngo zabo babanye neza nabo bahemukiye basabanye imbabazi binjiye mu cyo twakwita ubumwe n'ubwiyunge. Ubwo rero habaho gusangana wahemukiye mugenzi we akamusanga akamusura akemera icyaha akanakicuza akanasaba imbabazi.
The National Unity and Reconciliation Commission has been at the heart of the country's effort to overcome the legacy of the genocide. It has embraced a policy of community building through dialogue and has turned to a number of traditional practices to facilitate this approach. One such practice is the return of community mediators like the chief, or Abunzi, as it was traditionally known. His role is to oversee local disputes and to try and resolve problems within the community, promoting dialogue and community participation. I have to admit, I found it almost unbelievable how these communities are continuing to live together. I asked the chief if he would take me to see someone who had participated in the genocide.
Anyway.
I wanted to ask him what it was that drove him to kill his own neighbors.
Habayeho politiki mbi ishingiye ku butegetsi bwariho butameze neza nuko batoroha muri gahunda yo kwica abatutsi tujyamo turabica n'utarajyagayo baravuga ngo baramutemagura nuko ubwo rero icyaha kingwaho gityo.
Like most of the genocide perpetrators in this village, this man confessed to his crimes, thereby receiving a reduced sentence. I asked him if he found it difficult living together now with the survivors.
Kugeza n'isaha rero ndumva nta kibazo mfite kuko mbanye n'abaturage neza ndetse n'abacitse ku icumu turakorana yemwe turanashyingirana turasabirana turahekana turatwererana iyo habaye amakwe nta kibazo rwose dufite.
The whole situation is truly remarkable, but this was obviously only one side of the story. I wanted to hear from the survivors how it felt to be living side by side with the very people who had killed their families. One such survivor is Seraphine. She was 10 years old when the killing began, and out of a family of 12, she lost all but one brother. Most of those responsible for the deaths confessed to their crimes and have since returned to the village. She now lives here alone with her child after her husband recently died of an illness.
Icyunamo cyatangiye kigeze mu kwezi kwa kane mu cyumweru cyo kwibuka ababyeyi nibwo usanga inkovu ahantu bagiye banema n'94 nibwo usanga zongeye zikaturika zikabyimba nkakunda no kujya mu bitaro kuko nkunda kugira ihahamuka cyane.
Seraphine has just recently received compensation from her attackers as ordered by one of the local Gacaca courts, the traditional community-based tribunals that were set up by the government to deal with the overwhelming backlog of genocide cases.
Nagiyemo turaburana tumaze kuburana bemera ko bishe bamaze kwemera ko bishe basaba imbabazi bavuga ko banadusahuriye ibintu habaho kuvuga kubiriha twebwe tubana neza kuko basabye imbabazi n'ijambo ry'Imana ravuga ngo gusaba imbabazi zazimuye twarababariye bava muri tije tukabakira neza nta kibazo haba hari ikinyobwa tugasangira haba hari ikiribwa tugasangira ubwo nuko nyine tubana nta kibazo.
Seraphine, have you really forgiven these people? Do you honestly believe that real forgiveness will take place in this country?
Seraphine was an incredibly courageous young lady, but speaking to her, I could feel how close to the surface those memories still were. And it made me realize that despite the astounding sense of progress, the situation here is still very delicate. Hearing about everything that had happened here in this village made me think of Vestine as a 16-year-old girl caught in the middle of this madness that would totally change the course of her life. I went to pay her a final visit and found her looking the happiest I'd seen her and reunited with her two remaining brothers. And although she would have to wait a year before getting her father's property back, her journey had ended well.
Nishakuwa nashanga pembeni yangu Joy raha mingi sana.
When we started this journey in the Congo, we had no idea how it was going to end. But this time, it's good news from Africa. Good news from a country that has come a long way from a terrible past.
Well, that's it for this edition of People in Power. If you'd like to comment on today's film, then we'd love to hear from you. Do get in touch on aljazeera.net/English. Until next time, goodbye.